Lokoz Boxing, Canelo Alvarez versus Caleb Plant. As you already know by now, we're at the press conference. They were doing their face-off, face-to-face. You can see Canelo being serious. On the other hand, you can see Caleb Plant saying all kinds of things or throwing insults at Canelo, trying to get in his head or to get him angry during this face-off. That's nothing new. Canelo's opponents always do that. They try to get into his head. They try to talk more than they should. But it normally doesn't result in much more than both fighters pushing each other. In fact, that's kind of like the norm in boxing. You have one guy who's not talking as much. You have the other guy who's talking too much. This time, however, it got a lot more exciting than just pushing each other. When Canelo pushed Caleb Plant after he triggered him, Caleb Plant looks like he took a swing at Canelo. Canelo did some matrix movement, dodged the swing, and was able to connect with Plant in the face. The rest of the press conference was pretty much Canelo and Caleb going back and forth. While some things to notice about this interaction, as entertaining as it was, how many times are we going to see Canelo Alvarez's opponents talk a lot more than they can handle? Cross the line with the types of insults that they say. When Canelo was interviewed, he said that he draws the line when the other fighter tries to talk about his mother. Now, I don't know if Caleb Plant deliberately talked about Canelo's mother or if Canelo misunderstood, because Caleb Plant did say motherfucker. And this could have made Canelo think that Caleb Plant was talking about his mother, seeing how Canelo is still practicing or learning his English. Although I think it still deserves the reaction that occurred, because what business does anybody have just throwing nonstop insults at a face-off when you're going to a professional conference? So eventually, even if they're just insulting you, you may have enough, and you may call the other fighter's bluff. Even at that, after the press conference action happened, Caleb Plant never denied talking about Canelo Alvarez's mother. So it kind of leads us to believe that he may have said something and it's not a misunderstanding. What's not a misunderstanding is that he was there talking shit nonstop, trying to get into Canelo's head, and it looks like it worked a little too good. And to say the least, it didn't turn out how Caleb Plant was expecting it. He tried to get in Canelo's head, and Canelo ended up connecting to Caleb's head with the punch. You can see after the press conference that Caleb Plant was slightly bleeding. A reporter asked him what happened, if he's okay, and he just says it's just a scratch from the glasses. You can tell Caleb Plant is deeply embarrassed by the way the action went down, since he didn't get his hit. Canelo was able to hit Caleb. When Caleb swung at Canelo, Canelo was able to dodge it. That's got to be very frustrating. It's got to be embarrassing. Even after the press conference, or during the press conference, after the little action that we've got to see, you can tell Caleb Plant was beyond frustrated. He just kept cursing at Canelo, just saying illogical things. And by illogical, I mean, we have a press conference going on. You're being asked questions. For everything Canelo would say, Caleb Plant was just throwing insults at him without being able to keep a good conversation or answer the questions appropriately for the most part. He just kept saying bitch, bitch. At some point, he even invited Canelo to suck his genitalia, which I think is a pretty odd way to respond during the press conference. Yeah, I know it's meant as an insult, but it still doesn't look good for a fighter to be making those types of invitations. Then Caleb Plant, I think, makes the case worse for himself, because he's hanging onto a thread, just shouting that Canelo's a cheater, saying he's a cheater over and over and over. Well, if you really think that, then why are you going to fight a cheater? And to make it worse, he says Canelo's a cheater, and then he says he's not in this for the money. He's in this for the sport. Well, what a big contradiction, because if you were not in it for the money, then why are you fighting somebody who you deeply believe is a cheater? Canelo did respond to him during Caleb Plant's accusations of Canelo being a cheater. Canelo then told him, well, quit making excuses before the fight. I think this makes sense due to the fact that, okay, you're saying he's a cheater and you're not in it for the money. So what can be expected? When Canelo beats Caleb Plant, we're obviously going to hear that it's because Canelo cheated. I think this is a problem too with people in boxing who just deeply don't like Canelo. If he's taking the VADA test for the fight and he wins, you're just going to default to saying he cheated no matter what. It looks like Caleb Plant is turning into Billy Joe Saunders. I didn't think I would ever see that from Caleb Plant because he typically is a little more reserved. But what he's trying to do is he's trying to get in Canelo's head. He's bringing up the whole meat situation over and over and over. Who else did this? Billy Joe Saunders did. During their face-off, before then. I think it gets old that he's just following the footsteps of Billy Joe Saunders. We saw how that ended for Billy Joe Saunders. And we've already seen the results of, yes, the boxer talks all the shit they want. They just keep talking shit out of their teeth, believing nothing that comes out of their own mouths. And then they get defeated. At the end of the fight, they give their props to Canelo. We're probably going to see the same thing. Although, to give Caleb Plant the benefit of the doubt, I do think he's going to be a little more difficult than Billy Joe Saunders. With all that being said, it just goes back to what Canelo had said before about how you should fear a quiet person more than one that talks a lot of shit and tries to be all flashy and call for attention. Caleb Plant was just talking his shit at Canelo's face, and then Canelo had enough and decided to act on it without even giving Canelo a prior warning. So he was trying to get in Canelo's head, he was trying to frustrate him, and it sounded like Caleb Plant got even more frustrated during this press conferences. He didn't get his hit in. And to add salt to the injury, when a reporter keeps asking or when people ask him about his injury, if he's okay, this is not something he's going to be able to escape. This video is going to go viral of him being punched. I could already imagine people adding music to it, adding some visual effects, using it as a laughable meme all over the place. Every time Caleb Plant sees this video or the image transformed into a meme or a video saying thug life or something of that nature, it's going to add more salt to the injury. This might end up in his head, leaving him to come in bitter, not be able to fully control his emotions during the fight. We'll see what happens. I do expect the best from this fight. I think it's going to be a great, entertaining fight. We'll see how Canelo is able to play the patience game up in the ring, not to just go and try to wipe him out. Caleb Plant is going to be a good challenge for him, especially since this is the type of fighter that typically makes Canelo come up with a patient strategy. Let me know what y'all think. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Lokoz Boxing.